Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Tom Christiano. Well, tonight we have an outstanding panel of town leaders to discuss primarily Chelmsford issues and the upcoming Chelmsford election. With me tonight for the first time in about 8 years is Tom Newcomb. How are you, Tom?
Very good, Tom. How are you doing?
Good, good, thanks. Tom used to be a selectman in Chelmsford, right? What were the years, Tom? Do you remember? 2000?
I think it was 2004 to 2007.
Yeah.
Before that, I was a town meeting rep.
Yeah.
I've also been active in other committees in town before that as well.
Yes. And you also started the Chelmsford Cycle here in Chelmsford, right?
Yes, that's how you and I first met.
I
didn't start it. I worked there
And then
in high school. I bought it and owned it for just over 5 years, and that's where you and I met.
Oh,
You
yes,
bought
I
your bike.
remember vividly because I bought my first 18-speed bike, a Shogun, from you, and that's when you were on the Little Peach Plaza on Boston Road. Most people don't know that, but you started over there, and Tom had a little spot, and he was really a great business person, I think,
Thank
right?
you.
You were doing great sales and everything, and then business was so good, you moved over to Summer Street, I think to a little bigger spot.
Well, actually, I was in 3 different locations on Summer Street. So I started, when I bought the place, I had 560 square feet. When I eventually sold it on Summer Street, I had 3,200 square feet. So
See, it grew tremendously. You ran it tremendously,
Thank you.
Tom.
But at 4
And you
different
always were
locations.
nice to me when I went in there. We were like friends. Remember we talk about biking and all kinds of stuff when I went in there. Very friendly, small business person. And then you sold it to Malcolm. I guess you or and his partners. You sold it to and Malcolm has it now at the old Bill and Andy shop on Chelmsford Street. So Chelmsford Cyclery, we have one of the originators there, kind of, the early proprietors. So thanks for being back on the show, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Oh, and Tom is a town meeting representative in Precinct 9 this year. That's one of the reasons, candidate. That's one of the reasons I invited Tom. I said, oh, Tom's getting back into the political scene. That's why you've been out of the political scene for a little while, so that's why it's been a while since you've been on the show. So I saw you ran, so I said, oh, we got to get Tom. I remember, I think I asked you about 2 months ago to be on the show, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Tom.
No, thank you for having me.
And we have my good friend Evelyn Thoren with us again tonight.
Good evening,
How are
Tom.
you, Evelyn?
Doing well?
You know how many times you've been on the show, Evelyn?
Yeah, you told me earlier.
Yeah, 23. This is your 23rd time on the show. Isn't that great? And Evelyn was on back in 1995 when I hosted my first debate. I was probably as nervous as Evelyn was in that debate, if not more so. In 1995, I'll never forget it. You and Tom Welch and you've been on the school committee since what? 1990?
1998.
1998. That's what, 16 years or something like that? It's amazing. So thank you very much for serving the town for so long. And you're still serving on the school committee, right? And
Yes.
happily?
Yeah, I have 2 more years left in my term.
In your term, 2 more years.
Right.
And
And
then
I
maybe
told you
you'll-
before, I got involved at the state level, and in order to be involved
Yes.
at that level, you have to be involved at the local level.
Yes. And are you on any other? Oh, you're
I'm on the Arts
you-
and Technology
you found-
Education.
One of the founders, weren't
Yes,
you? of
with
that?
George Ripson
Of
of the
the-
Arts and Technology Education Fund.
Yeah.
And so if anybody's listening, they'd like to make a donation, there's a tax checkoff that you have on your real estate tax bill and also on your excise tax bill. And so you're able to donate, and if you don't want to do it that time, you can donate at any point in time. And it goes towards equipment, projects, supplies, events, whatever, that will enhance the current curriculum. It's not part of the budget of the school committee. School committee doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yes.
I happen to be on it because I founded it before I got on the school committee. So it's a great committee. It's very exciting in June when we make our awards.
Oh, yes, it is.
To the teachers.
And you're also a long time, along with your husband, town meeting representative,
Yep,
right?
I've been on consecutively since 1989. And Glenn is running in Precinct 5 this year. So if anybody is listening that's in Precinct 5, he'd appreciate your vote
her son
on
is
April
running.
1st.
Your son
And then this year, my oldest son is running in Precinct 8. But he has no competition
right, I saw
because there was only 5 for 6. So we congratulated him on a well-run campaign
Yes.
quite a few weeks ago. So
Yeah,
now, if Glenn gets elected, there's 2 Glenn R. Thorns.
I saw that he was running. I'll have to have him on the show sometime. I'd love to.
Yeah.
And also,
both.
Tom Newcomb is probably going to be an incumbent too, because there's only 6 candidates, right, in Precinct 9 at the moment.
Correct. There were 7 people who pulled papers.
Yeah.
Only 6 returned papers.
Yeah.
But there
So
was
it
a
looks
race in
good for you,
5.
Tom. So I'll be glad to see you at town meeting again.
You don't expect any write-ins.
No, but you never know.
That's true.
No,
You never
right.
know
You
this
never
time.
know, but it looks good for
there's
all
a-
those who are.
Yeah, there's a lot less people running this time
Yes.
around than
Right.
normally. There's
Yeah.
a lot less competition.
Yeah.
But there is in precinct 5.
Yes, yeah.
So we'd appreciate a vote for Glen Thoren.
How many?
Number 5 on the ballot.
How many are in precinct 5 candidates?
There's 7 for 6 positions.
7 for 6, yeah. Well, thanks for being here again, Evelyn.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. And we have my good friend Bob Joyce with us tonight. How are you, Bob?
Great, Tom.
Your 8th time on the show, so if you win the election this year for selectman, I'm sure it'll be.
We can beef that number
Yeah,
up.
we'll
huh?
beat it, bump it up. At least every selectman I invite, usually once a year onto
Yeah.
the show, whatever. But so as everyone knows, Bob Joyce is one of the candidates for selectman this year, one of 2 candidates for 1 seat on the board.
Right.
The other candidate is Joe Reddy, who was on my show soon after he announced.
Right.
So I had each candidate on one time before the election to be fair. So we're taping the show exactly 1 week before the election,
Yes.
right, Bob?
Yep.
And later on, when we begin the show, you'll be talking about your background and things, so we could wait to talk about all your committees
Yep.
until then, if you like.
That's great.
Is there anything else you'd like to say quickly in the introduction that you might think?
No, most people know who I am by
Yeah,
this time.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll elaborate a little more when we get into the
Great.
show more.
Great, and you could show everybody that new mailing you have
Yeah.
there that you brought in. It
Definitely.
looks beautiful.
Yep, thank you.
Wow, and expensive.
Wasn't that expensive?
Oh, good, good. Well, thanks for being here, Bob. And we have my
Thank
good
you.
friend Jeff Apostolakes with us tonight for the
Yes.
2nd time. How are you, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Tom?
Good, good, thank you.
I'm the newbie here, 2 times.
2 times, yeah, so we got some real veterans here tonight.
Yeah, excellent.
And Jeff is an alternate on the planning board, right,
Yep,
Jeff?
alternate on the planning board.
And-
I find that to be, excellent to learn the processes and get involved even at a higher level within town. So
Yes, yeah. And you're also town meeting representative in my precinct, Precinct 9, right? The
town
one-
meeting
I'm
representative.
also rep there.
Exactly. Precinct 9.
Yeah. Are you on any other committee? Oh, you're an open space steward. I know you've done a
Open
lot of
space steward.
volunteer work.
Yeah,
there.
worked down at Hart Pond. I'm kind of part and partial to Hart Pond, and like I said before, it's got a special place in my heart, I really enjoy working down there, and there's nothing better than seeing a family just enjoying the facility, and that's a gem, and it's so nice that Chelmsford has taken over Hart Pond, and
Oh, it's wonderful.
proud to be a part of that.
Oh, yeah, and I see you there very often, you and your wife, and maybe your children sometimes too, working there, because I bike by there
Yeah, all the
almost
time.
every day in the season.
Exactly.
And I see you there a lot, and I stop at Hart Pond almost every day to take a look at the pond,
Yep.
sometimes take photos, and then make either paintings or art photos out of
Exactly.
it. Hart Pond is like
always
gem,
stop
as you
Tom-
said.
Yeah, I always stop Tom and find out what mile marker he's at.
Oh, yeah, because last year I was lucky. Tom, I don't know if knows that. I biked 2,511 miles
Wow.
last year, Tom. So Tom used to bike like crazy, too. He used to bike to work.
That's
How
about
many miles?
2,000,
Did you have time to bike last year, Tom?
Not too much. I take my mountain bike out into Thanksgiving Forest mostly, but
yeah.
that's
Oh, I
been
see.
the extent of it.
So you don't pull up the miles on the roads like I do or on the bike path, that kind of thing.
No, I'd like to get back into it, but it's
Oh, yeah, it's busy. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks. So it's great to be able to bike, and I already started this year. I'm up to about 77 miles this year. Of course, not on the bike path, though, because it's still loaded with snow.
Yeah.
But I bike on the roads until the bike path gets cleared.
Yep.
But I thought maybe if we could start with Bob Joyce on the first thing. Bob, I was wondering if you could let us all know why you decided to run for selectman this year.
Okay, well, I felt that it was a good year to run because of issues that are coming up before us. I felt that my experience from being a selectman and also everything I've done since would be a big plus for the board. I'd like to stimulate the board somewhat on some issues and bring some new issues to the table as well. And quite honestly, I got more time now than I did 21 years ago when I had 2 small children
Right.
and
How
a
old
business
are-
in town.
How old are your children now?
My kids right now are 27 and 28. So
And
they're-
your daughter is your campaign manager, right?
Right,
And
right.
I went to both of the campaign parties, yours and
Right.
Joe's. And your daughter helped prepare all the food, right, or coordinated all. It was great.
And
all
the
that you put in
decoration.
at the old North Town Hall, the Chelmsford Community Center, and you had a nice party over there.
Yeah,
Bob.
it was excellent.
And your daughter did a fabulous
Yeah,
job. She's
yeah.
such a beautiful young
She
lady.
did. She did it. She did a great job, and then she had to work that night. She had to work a graveyard.
Really?
So
Oh
she
my
left
God.
at about 10 to go home and get changed and go to work. So
Oh my God, she's
yeah,
wonderful.
she's spectacular. She really is.
So you're running up to bring forth these other topics and issues to the
Right.
Board of Selectmen,
Right.
maybe have a different perspective.
Right.
Could you quickly name 2 or 3 of these issues that you were most interested in?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely looking at a 5-year strategic plan.
Okay.
We haven't really done one. I know we do a 5-year
But
capital
yeah.
budget, but we haven't really done a strategic plan which would bring in all the parts of the town, including the school department. The school department does a strategic plan now. I believe it's
Yes.
up to date, isn't
Right,
it?
and when I came on here in 1995, I was asking Tom, I said, you remember that I did the presentation with visuals
Right.
on doing a 5-year
Yeah.
plan as far as the Board of
What was it,
Selectmen goes.
Lynchburg, Virginia? Was that part?
Blacksburg.
What was it? Blacksburg?
Yeah, Blacksburg, Virginia
Right.
Tech.
Yeah.
So it
And
was,
all the
it kicked
technology.
around, but it never really got,
Yeah.
But I thought that
Yeah.
Bernie did one when he had the assistant town manager, and we won whatever that award
An
was.
award for it, yeah.
Quite a few years in a row.
But it hasn't been done since, and the reason I'm really focusing on that is because things come up, and you wonder where they come from, you know? Projects to come up. I mean, certainly the fire station was on a strategic plan from back when I was a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, or even before.
Probably when Tom was on it, they talked
Oh, yeah.
about it too. But I think that we, you know, as far as the whole plan of capitalization, finance, there's a whole bunch of different departments we really should reach out to and get a 5-year plan. And Paul Cohen has got this extraordinary capital planning,
Yeah.
which
You want me to show it up
Yeah.
while you talk? Or
yeah, and it is extraordinary. He looks like 20 years ahead, and there's a lot of things in there, and we have to make decisions now of where we're going to place them in the timeline.
Has
So-
Paul distributed this yet?
Yes, that was a tri-board meeting, the most recent one I think I went to. That was
The
given out.
tri-board meeting. Oh, but
No,
I
the
mean,
most recent one was in January.
but he didn't distribute it to all the town meeting reps or anything like
No.
that.
No.
I wonder if he has a plan to.
It's an-
What's this called? Extraordinary
It's-
capital planning.
it's on the
Is this
website.
strictly on the capital plan?
It's on the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, which is great. Saves paper. That
Yes,
way,
it
that's
is.
good.
It's just the
They
capital
should
planning.
highlight it on the homepage there then.
Yeah.
I wish maybe they could do that.
Yeah, I mean,
That
there's
was
everything in there from, replacing all the toilets and all the plumbing in most of the schools in the town. Some of it's already been started.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
been on our list
Yes.
since
Yeah.
1996.
Right.
Mm.
Because
But
we put
it-
together all of
yeah.
that plan for a long-range capital plan for the schools, so that it wouldn't be a surprise to the community
Yeah.
when we came forward with that in 96.
And the thing is, with a strategic plan, you can plan what your requirements are going to be kind of well in advance.
Yes.
And maybe build in a factor of escalation so that
Yes.
10 years from now, it's going to cost you X numbers more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely a thing we have to do.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that's definitely something I'll focus on.
So that's what, another focus quickly, Bob?
Yeah,
And then we'll talk a little about your background.
managing debt.
Managing debt.
I think we need to manage debt better in town. In the past, we've taken reduction of debt and filled it with more debt. So I think we either need a policy or we need to find some way that things don't get into the debt structure that haven't been vetted
Yes.
well in advance. Now, the fire department was vetted well in advance, and
Yeah.
it's the way he chose to do it. But
Yeah.
lots of other things have to be done too. So
Yes.
that's something I'll definitely focus on.
Yes. And you're trying to keep taxes low, right, Bob?
Yes,
And,
definitely.
you're talking about maybe returning money to the taxpayers?
Well, if it's
if-
possible, and-
If there's, say,
Yeah.
what do you call it, free cash?
Yeah, free
That
cash.
kind of thing?
But at the board level, it takes 3 votes to make a change. So maybe we might get a policy where we'll, say that X number of dollars should go to free cash,
Yeah.
and X number of dollars
Fair.
should go back to the
Tax.
taxpayers. So
In
percentage.
fact, we may talk about that
Percentage.
later in the show. We have
Yeah.
it as a topic, Janet Askenberg's policy proposal
Right.
that you brought before the Board of Selectmen about a month ago. So
Right.
maybe we'll talk about that later
Okay.
on the show. But quickly, Bob, could you quickly mention some of your background? Because I know you have a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of quickly.
Yeah, definitely. In 1989, I went on the Sewer Commission, and I actually beat Jack Emerson that year. And
Wow.
I remember bragging to Jack. And,
That is something, yeah.
I went to Jack and said, I topped the ticket.
But he
And-
made it on. He just,
Oh,
he
he
just
made it
got more
on, yeah, no
votes.
problem.
That's
He says-
amazing, 'cause he
and
was
if you
very
remember,
popular.
If you remember him,
Oh,
he'd
of
say,
course, he was on my first show.
Robert, always remember that the first election you'll get the most votes. After that, they'll dwindle.
Yeah,
Jack was a great guy.
Yeah, he
I
was
loved
on my
him.
first show in
Yeah,
April
yeah.
1995.
Yep.
So anyway, from there, I was on that till 1993.
Yeah.
And I then ran for the Board of Selectmen against Roger Blumgren and actually unseated him. And then served for 3 years.
Yeah.
My kids were still small. I had a local business. It wasn't the right time really for me.
Yes.
And then I left after my 3 years and remained a town meeting member since 1989. And then I went on the Neshoba School Board and as a school committee person, and I also ran for planning board, and I've been on the planning board 10 years now. So
10 years already,
yeah,
wow.
learned a lot.
And you're still, now what if you win the selectman race? Bob?
I have
Would
to
you
give it up.
You have to give up.
Yep.
And then would an alternate like Jeff hopefully move up?
I would expect
think-
that. I would expect that the planning
Potentially,
board.
Would that be okay, Jeff, for you? if
Sure.
you-
Oh, absolutely.
good,
I'm ready to
good,
step
good.
in if
I would
if
expect
need
that the
be.
planning board and the selectmen would see him as an excellent candidate.
yes.
So,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
And then he'd serve out my term, which is
Yeah.
1 more year.
Yeah.
And then he'd run on his own if he wants to.
So planning board
Right.
and former selectman,
Right.
sewer commissioner,
Right.
planning board 10 years,
Yep.
town meeting rep since 1989.
I was on the master plan committee in 1995
Wow.
for a short time, and then because I was leaving the board, I came off that. And I've been on a lot of smaller committees like preservation. I was on 1 year.
Yeah.
I was on a technical committee for computers 1 year. But I
And
do
you
a lot
have
of
all
things.
time- You have enough time with your full-time job, Bob? 'Cause
Yeah.
You're working, what, is it in
I work
Westford?
at I work at Sonus Networks in Westford,
Yeah. Are
which
you
is
a
right across
private-
the street from the Neshoba Tech.
Oh,
So we'll
is
have to
it?
meet
Oh,
for
yeah.
lunch sometime.
Yeah, yeah. The Neshoba Tech is great for lunch, by the way. You go and have a nice lunch for
very-
$6 or $7 there.
Mm-hmm.
And the students, I find them so interesting, so much fun, because they're somewhat inexperienced as waiters or waitresses, and it's just kind of fun to go there. But it's a beautiful decor, oak tables and chairs, and very nicely done.
Yep.
Yeah, the
it's
school
very
committee
nice.
had a joint meeting last night with the Board of Selectmen and reappointed Sam Polton
Right.
to the
Oh, I
committee.
saw that. I watched
So
it, yeah.
it always happens right before the election. It's
Yep.
supposed to happen before April 1st.
Yeah, I saw that. But Bob, do you want to quickly show your new mailing? At
Oh,
least
yeah,
for the-
I
Oh,
figured-
what- if you want, I could hold
We
up.
might come back
What-
to it, but
Oh.
you have to show
I
both
don't know,
sides.
Bob wants to maybe talk about it while
Yeah,
we get a shot, and I'll show both sides.
Yeah. This is hitting the mailboxes
Okay,
today.
That's the outs.
Today,
where's the-
tomorrow, and probably Friday, Thursday and Friday. But I have covered the entire town with it. We've got other things that are going with it, but this is, I just want to, well,
Yeah.
hold it up
Oh,
again. I
okay.
want
The
to show
front or
the other
back?
side,
Yeah,
yeah. Down in the left corner, it says, put this in your car window, tape it to your car window.
Oh, yeah,
Bumper stickers never work because
Yes.
they can't come off, so people don't like them.
yeah.
So
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So hopefully.
So you could have this side, of course, is
Right, that's the
tape it
side
to the
that
next
takes it
window.
Yeah. My bumper stickers always came off.
Do they?
You know, that's a nice mailing, Bob. Gee.
Yeah. And it
That's
was
very nice.
People don't like to put 'em
it
on.
was worth the cost because it's the biggest thing that I'm gonna put out in the campaign. So
Nice.
yeah,
Well, good luck with everything, Bob. We'll
Thank
maybe
you.
talk more about the
Yeah.
campaign later
Yeah.
on in the show.
absolutely. Thank
We'll
you.
go to Tom next, and then Jeff, and then Evelyn, if that's okay. But just to quickly mention the election, which of course everyone knows is April 1st, Tuesday. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then, as we do every year on this show, 1 week after the election, we have our post-election analysis show. And we have a great panel of 5 people lined up for this year. Pam Armstrong, Charlie Wojcik, Kathy Duffett, Jim Lane, and another person too, I think. So-
Possibly 6, you said.
Oh, 5.
If I
Oh,
win.
possibly 6.
If I win.
If Bob wins, yeah, I'd love to get his daughter on the show. she's such a doll, but nice person, and
Yeah.
beautiful, nice person. But
And absentee ballots are currently available at the
good.
town hall
Yep.
if anybody thinks that they can't be around on the 1st. So it isn't that you can just have one opportunity to vote.
Opportunity, yeah.
You have quite a number of opportunities to vote to fit it into your schedule.
And the other person is
right.
Sue Carter on the
Sue Carter.
post-election show. So a lot of people who've run for townwide office, Jim, who's just leaving the Board of Selectmen after doing a great job. So, so it's great. Thank you, Evelyn. Well, Tom, I wonder if you could talk to us why you decided to run for town meeting rep this year.
Well, you know,
you.
Tom, as I mentioned before, and as you know, I've been active in a lot of different things in town, going way back to before we had the Community Preservation Act. I had been on the board of directors of the Chelmsford Land Conservation Trust, which is an independent organization, and some of us got together and formed a group to basically lobby for the passage of the Community Preservation Act. So it was I think it was the founding members of that group, and then a town meeting rep, served on the Board of Selectmen, served in the school building committee. Stepped away for a while. I had a lot of different things going on. Among that, while I was on the Board of Selectmen, I had my mother and brother pass away 3 months apart suddenly, and really stepped back and refocused. And but I see it as an opportunity to get back involved in the town. I think, like anybody that runs for office, they see things that they see ways that they can contribute, and they see ways also that there are things that they don't particularly like the direction things are going in, and they like to help shape that direction, and that's my motivation.
Wonderful. Do you want to say anything else about the background or education or anything like that, Tom? Or
I think that I think that I really wanted to focus on I mean, you and I, we've talked about my involvement in town and my history in town, and I think that
and you have two children, right, Tom?
yes,
Are they in the Chelmsford school system? They are, right?
they're both at the high school.
High school now.
Yeah.
Wow. Is one still in Boy Scouts? Your son?
No, Jack was involved in Scouts for a while, but then he got very involved in running,
Oh, good.
and
Is he on the cross country or
he's
track team?
runs cross country, distance runner in winter track, distance runner in spring track. What's interesting is that when he first started running, he said he was only going to run cross country. He had no interest in the other, but the cross country coach is he looks like a Marine. He teaches self-defense to prison guards. He's a real tough guy, and he said to the kids, he says, "You're running winter track, and you want to run in spring track to stay in shape." And they all said, "Okay."
I remember I was on the cross country team and the track team too in high school, and we had a coach. He was about 80 years old in high school. His name was Chick Lawson, and he had this '58 Chevy, which everybody liked. But here he is, 80 years old, and he's doing a little bit, trying to touch his toes and everything. But even he showed if you keep in shape, you could stay vibrant, and if you keep exercising throughout your life. But he was a great guy.
Well, not
great
just
coach.
that, but also the athletic programs in the schools are very social now. I mean, it's far different than when I went to Chelmsford High, and my daughter is now doing shot put in winter track. She was playing field hockey in the fall. She was looking for something to do in the winter, so she's doing she's throwing shot put in the winter and spring. But it's a very social event, and I think it really ties the kids together incredibly.
Wonderful.
And I mean, it's a great athletic program we have.
They need that.
And there's
for ti-
different
Yes.
culture in each of the teams. My younger two, which I mean, the youngest is going to be 33 this year, but they were on the track team, mostly spring track and winter track. They didn't necessarily do cross country. But one of the things that had started them on that was in elementary school, they used to have the Dan Horgan mini marathon at Byam. Then when it left there, when we went to a middle school concept, then it went up to the middle school. And when we got to the high school, all those kids that you saw that did that little mini marathon in Byam were on the track teams, male and female, at the high school level. I stood one time watching some of the field events. I'm going, those guys were all the ones who were all together down at Byam.
Oh, yeah.
Or that they came in from some of the other schools because they were invited. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see the interest level when you, plant that seed at an elementary level and how it works its way all the way up through. And my boys still run road races. And so do
Oh, yeah.
their wives.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
they're always
Yeah, they were big
in
into
yours,
it.
when
Yeah.
you have
Yeah,
yours.
the Run for Ryan's Cup.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thanks. Well, thanks, Tom. Jeff, I was wondering, what are the big issues that you're involved in right now? Seems to be the proposed 40B
40B.
on Mill Road.
Yeah, it's
The
a,
last I heard, it was be 108 or more units.
Right.
Over there on the corner of Mill Road and Route 129.
right.
Could you talk a little about that, Jeff?
Sure. 40B, it's a very controversial law out there right now. It seems to give the developers a lot of leeway, and it really kind of handcuffs the town, unfortunately. And through that process, we find that, and what I'm seeing, it really kind of makes it an adversarial process between the residents or the people within the neighborhoods and the town itself. One of the misconceptions that I think we hear out there is the residents don't understand, what the job of the ZBA is and everything.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is, we fully understand that the ZBA, the limits to what they can do, Board of Selectmen, what they could do. And so we fully understand that. But this is a particular project on Mill Road, which is a designated scenic road. And as you know, not too long ago, there was a big issue with lines being painting on a
yes.
scenic road. And
Yes.
but we've got a completely different issue here. We've got a high-density project being put on Mill Road that is being put just around probably one of the most dangerous corners on Mill Road. Now, Mill Road, we know, is a dangerous road.
Yes.
The full length of it.
Yeah.
A lot of curves, a lot of students out there.
Fairly
No
narrow.
sidewalks.
I mean,
No sidewalks or anything
no
like that.
sidewalks,
So,
not that wide.
right. So we know that it's a dangerous road. The residents, we are all for affordable housing. Truly affordable housing. But this here is just a monstrosity that they're going to stick on the corner of this road. There's a lot of local safety, health concerns that we have in there. Basically, they're going to try to stamp the high-density unit on a little over 4 acres on one of probably the most dangerous corners on Mill Road.
Yes.
And we're really concerned about the safety of it. And it's just not the right location for
Yes.
something like this.
And I think it's only proposed to be 20% affordable units. 80% would be market rate rentals. They'll all be
Exactly.
rental units.
Exactly.
But 80% will be market rates. And this Princeton Properties, they charge a fair amount
Oh, they
for
do.
their properties. The new, you can just look it up online. Their new apartments are pretty expensive.
Right.
So I don't even know who's going to rent all these things at
Well,
market rate.
Well, the thing is
But
that
maybe it won't be built. From what I heard, the grade is very steep there too, right?
well, it's a
Which is
12% grade that basically they're going to be creating another turnpike. Exiting down onto Mill Road.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems that presents. Whether or not they could lower that, at one point Princeton Property said no. They may try to lower it a bit, but then what comes into play is ADA compliance. So I'm sure they'll be looking at ADA compliance and making sure that the slope. And then there was some concerns about getting fire apparatus up in and around there.
Right. And being able to turn around,
Being
maybe
able to
up
turn
at the
around.
end.
It's a very,
There's
very
not much,
tight.
it's like you said, it's a little over 4 acres.
Right.
For 108 housing units, basically. That's, at what,
Yeah.
how many stories is it proposed now? Or maybe you don't, it's either 3 or 4,
Yeah, it's
something like
three
that, but
buildings at 3 stories.
3, yeah.
But, one of the issues here, when we talk about some of the local safety and health concerns, is it's going to be put right in the middle of. I mean, it's immediately abutting commercial properties. You've got
Yes.
noise, you've got light. There's documented use of chemicals.
Yes.
Which, even though some of the town departments said they don't really have any issues with that, I never say never.
Yeah.
And things can happen, and
yeah.
I'd hate to see something down the road a ways happen where a resident or some sort of catastrophe happens, and your residents,
Yes.
or somebody gets hurt, either up there
Yes.
or the other thing too is
Even walking.
Well,
on there.
we're concerned about school children
Yes. Yeah.
waiting on that corner on Mill Road. You
For
know,
a school bus or
yeah.
something?
Last time I heard, they're not going to discriminate against families living in there. So you are going to have school children
Yes,
there.
yeah.
And that stretch of Mill Road, you know, you like to say, you know, the average is about 34 miles an hour, but if you're coming in off 129 and you're queued up, it's almost like a racetrack where people are trying to get around that corner. The right-hand lane's supposed to go up Elizabeth Ave, but it's a racetrack. People are trying to get into that one lane, and they speed right down there. And so there's a lot of concerns. I'd encourage everybody to go to the ZBA meetings and take a look at it.
Yes.
And
When's the next one on this particular 40? Do you happen to know, Jeff? Or maybe it's not
I think it
scheduled
might
yet.
be April 7th. I will.
April 7th?
I will take a look at it, and what I will do is generally I'll put a notice out to the residents and out on Facebook and everything to.
You'll let everybody know.
Yeah.
And if you haven't joined the Chelmsford Reps and Residents group on Facebook,
Yeah.
please join
Absolutely.
it, because it's a way that we try to let everybody know what's going on in Chelmsford, right?
No,
And now with
absolutely.
the election here,
Absolutely.
there's so much going on that page. But even without the election, it's like every day, I know I post a lot of things, and other people do as well.
Right.
So it's called Chelmsford Reps and Residents. So please join that on Facebook if you haven't yet. There's about 825 on that page at the moment, which I happen to manage, but anyway.
That's a lot.
And I started about 4 years ago. So yeah, Jeff, by the way, just quickly, if I could mention, I was watching the Selectman meeting last night
Yep.
on TV, and Janet Askenberg brought up a good point about the contact information for the Zoning Board of Appeals members. This is an appointed board, which is
Right.
confirmed by the Selectman. You know about this, Bob,
Yeah, I
right?
was there last
So
night.
Janet brought up, a lot of the people in town want to send these people emails
Right.
about the Mill Road 40B
Sure.
or other housing developments.
Sure.
Only 3 of them, and I just checked before the show today, only 3 out of 8 names listed on the town website had a link to an email address, 3 out of 8. 1 didn't even have a listed phone number
Right.
there. And so I think, and Bob, if you become a selectman, I hope you could make this change or think about it, that as a condition in the future, maybe we can't do it for those who are already appointed, but before we put somebody on an appointed townwide board, especially one where we know people are going to want to contact them,
Right.
that they have to agree to have an email address and a phone number.
Right.
Now, Paul Cohn said at the meeting last night when Janet brought it up that they could use a town email address if they so desire.
Right, and
so
then when
there's
it does,
no excuse.
Yeah, then when it does, like the school system, we don't
Right.
have a private email address up there, and neither do the Board of Selectmen. And so you can easily do that, and then it kicks to your private email, so
Right.
that you get it
Right.
that way, rather than
Wonderful.
having to access it online all the time,
Right.
you know, through the town website, so
Yeah.
it comes back at you. And I think that people on those boards fear for, their personal time, and they're giving
Right.
their
Oh, I know,
time
but
to
that-
this.
all I'm saying.
Oh, I understand,
I'm
and I'm
saying
not
that if you-
disagreeing.
yeah,
I'm
if
saying
you-
that if you're going to be a public figure, whether you're an elected or appointed, you need to have means by which you can communicate with the public,
Exactly.
because you are serving the public.
Exactly.
And we know why they don't have their email link there.
Right,
All these
right.
people have email addresses because they don't want to get all these emails. They don't want to get these phone calls or whatever.
That's
but
part
if
of the
you want to
job.
be on the Zoning Board of Appeals, it's part of the job. So I think it's incumbent on the Board of Selectmen too, who are the town
But they
manager's
give them the
boss.
town,
Let me just
to
say-
make
town
sure.
email
Let me
addresses.
just say this, though. Paul does all the appointments, so it would be up to Paul to make sure that he follows up with those people and says during the interview or whatever process there is,
Yes.
you have to provide either a telephone number or a email address.
No, hopefully an email
Just an
address
email
as
address.
well, Bob.
Yeah.
No, both. I mean,
Right.
all
I mean, if
7
someone
out of
has-
8 had their
yeah.
phone numbers.
If someone
But
has
they-
a legitimate unpublished number, then you can't force them to do it.
Okay,
So
but
the
everybody at
email-
least have an
yeah.
email address then, because if you're on the Zoning Board of Appeals, one of the most important boards in the
Mm-hmm.
town of Chelmsford, because it's the only one that has control, any sort of control over 40Bs, you should have your email address there.
Right.
You should, because not putting it there, even though you have an email address, shows you don't want to be bothered with
Right.
what the people have to say. So why put you on that board?
Right,
But
right.
you are the boss of the town manager, really, the Board of
Right.
Selectmen.
That's right.
So I think you should tell
Yeah.
him ahead of time, first of all, so he doesn't come to a meeting, propose somebody, and then you bring it up. Oh, this
Right.
guy doesn't have, you should kind of
Yeah.
hopefully go
Yeah,
over
yeah.
it with him ahead of time.
Definitely.
But I thought that was a great question, and that Janet brought up last night. And the reason being is back when I first got involved, I'm sitting there saying, well, who am I going to write to? And I'm thinking right away the town manager, and not realizing who exactly. So She brought up good question about, should they go to Paul? Should they go to somebody else? So I agree
Yeah.
that I believe, if you're on a board, that you have to have ways that people can contact you.
Yes.
And that way, if something doesn't get read into the record or this and that and the other thing, you know that if you're gonna take the time to put your name, pen and ink to a piece of paper,
Yes.
that due diligence and this and that, and that people do read that into record or
Yeah.
whatever. So,
If you
And these
remember-
days, I'm
If you
sorry.
remember what Paul said was, he forwarded the number, because the emails are all identical, the number of emails that he received with all the listings of the email addresses, right?
Yeah.
And he forwarded them to the chairman.
Yeah.
Well, it's up to the chairman to get them to the other members, and how do we know that? We
Yes,
don't.
right,
you know.
right. Yes.
And Bob,
Yes.
I just want to point out that, Bob, you mentioned that it's Paul that makes the appointment as town manager, and yes, he does make the appointments,
Selectman, yeah.
but it's subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
That's right.
And the board could say, they could ask before, agreeing to an appointment.
Have you ever seen the Board of Selectmen reject one?
Unfortunately, no. I mean,
19
I was going to say, there have been,
1994, there was someone that applied
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the
it's-
capital committee, and I objected to it, and I had 3 votes, and I kept telling Bernie, don't do it, don't embarrass this person. He said, the man's got to do what a man's got to
yeah,
do.
and I
Oh.
remember.
Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I
But
mean,
the other
it's-
piece is when you
it's
have.
rare, but the board, if I can just finish,
Yep.
Evelyn, sorry. But the board could say, okay, we will endorse this appointment subject to them agreeing to this. And so they could put a condition upon it.
Right, but the other piece is that you can take a look at the application itself. I mean, I have applied way in the past, and there's a standard form that you're supposed to fill in. And there should be required fields, like
Right.
everything else.
Right.
And if you don't fill it in, then your name
It
isn't
doesn't
considered.
submit, right.
And then that way, then, you as a member of the board don't have to say to the town manager, well, did they submit this? Well, no, they didn't. Well, then I guess we're not going to appoint. And then that's all public discussion, and the name comes up, and it may
Yep.
embarrass the individual. So
Yep.
the easiest part of screening it is before it gets even
Right.
on the agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
a
you
good-
can
You
do
could
it
put it
that
on
way.
the
That's a good
application
point.
and
Yep.
state that this will be public if you are appointed.
Right.
That way they know by
Or they can-
applying
right.
that they will have an email address
That's public.
and preferably a phone number.
Right, or you can also do on the required fields, please give us your private email. You will be assigned a town email.
Town email,
to-
right.
If you would
to
like.
If you
have-
prefer.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
prefer,
Because-
and you can let them know. But that's one more step. If you just automatically defer to a town one, it's easier, because that way then you don't have to go back and forth. There's not all that time spent on all of the appointees trying to
Right.
make sure that they approve, they don't approve, what do you like, what don't you like. So you already have it already on your application, and it's so much simpler and far more efficient of the use of the time by the town manager
Right.
than to try to do all this other back and forth.
I
If
mean,
we're
in
looking
these
at
days of
trying to
communication, I
make
mean,
them
there's no excuse for
efficient.
not.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
You should
I
be able
get
to
so
get
many
that, yeah.
emails every day, and I send out a
Yeah.
lot of emails as well. Thank you. Evelyn, I wonder if we could talk to you about the top couple of priorities in the school committee these days?
Well, there's a whole lot of priorities, but we're always concerned about, how much money we're getting, because that determines if we're going to do anything new or if we're going to have to cut some of the things we currently have. But one of the things that we have been looking at since I have been on the board since 1998 was full-day kindergarten. And we had another committee take a look at it, and this time we have space, because in '98 we said we don't have money and we don't have space. And then a little later on, we had some finances, because the economic times then were a little different than it is now. And so we did have some financial money available to do it, but we had no space, because the enrollment was almost, like 5,700 students, and we were bursting at the seams. That's why we brought Center School online. And then we had, a vote go to the town to say, okay, we don't have the money to continue to operate. We need $2 million. If you don't, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to cut our budget. And that's when we repurposed Westlands. And people said, we didn't think you were going to do that, but we needed $2 million. And so by now having Westlands with a community ed, now we have space.
For the full-day kindergarten?
For
Is that
full-day,
where they would
if we go with full-day kindergarten, there's several things that you have to consider. First of all, we only have space in the elementary schools for 2 classes if you go full-time. Remember that kindergarten currently is half-day, so you have 4 of them. But if they go full-time, now you need 2 additional rooms. And we haven't decrease the population in our elementary schools enough in order to be able to
Facilitate that,
get
yeah.
more space. If we're going to have music and art, and sometimes even those are still on a cart, and doing things along those lines, and with some other challenges which I will mention, you need even more space for what we need to do. But the other piece, there is a statute that if you have full-day kindergarten and you charge for it, you still have to offer half-day kindergarten, and you have to transport your students. So they took a look at all kinds of finances. There's other soft areas that we need some definite numbers for. And so we decided we'd take another year to take a look at that. But what we did was we put it in the budget for the future. Now, when we first started it, everybody's throwing out this $1 million number. But because we do have some revolving accounts, which spread out using that money that we have in those accounts over 4 or 5 years, and offset what we would be asking for the town, so from the town extra to our budget. And then as we took a look at what we were doing, we were able to have a slightly higher hit to our budget in FY16, and then gradually it would decrease, so we would get back to what the number was. So it's not a $1 million hit to the town. We're not asking for that kind of money whatsoever, because we want to be able to work with our budget and work with the town in order to be able to provide for this particular program. But we need other numbers, and they have to be very hard numbers. So we actually know what the costs are, and we have no surprises. One of the
Another
other
quick topic, yeah.
Yep.
Issue.
Another one is PARC, Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. So what has happened, it's another unfunded mandate.
By the state?
By the state. So 2 years ago, they had an unfunded mandate to do teacher and staff evaluations. Okay, no money follows it. Thousands of hours and hundreds of hours by certain individuals in order to go into classrooms.
Wouldn't they be evaluated anyway?
They are evaluated, but this is a mandate coming down with specific criteria from the state. Yes, you do have to evaluate in order to whether or not you're going to give a teacher tenure or
Or just
professional
keep them,
status, or how, they always change the different names, and if you're going to keep them. And with certain administrators, you would evaluate them to see whether or not you're going to offer them another year contract, if you're going to give them a raise and how much. And so with PARC, though, you need to have computers. You need to have your technology out there. If you don't have the technology, because some of the communities in the western part of the state don't have internet access, they can't get it. So the Department of Ed, in its ultimate wisdom, said, well, then you can buy the test. You can buy the paper and pencil. So now they're mandating that you have to take the test, and now they're mandating that you also have to purchase the materials. Chelmsford doesn't necessarily have the problem with the technology aspect of it, because we ended up being #1 on that one-to-one computing for the first time this past year through Anne Marie Fiore. And we have to have, by state statute, a 5-year technology plan. And you have to, certain criteria that goes to the state with regard to that also. So the education system is loaded with all kinds of long-range plans.
Yeah.
But it's also loaded with an awful lot of unfunded mandates
Yes,
that's
thank you,
coming up.
Evelyn.
So we do have those kinds of issues. And they're trying to do charter school reform. We don't have much of an impact because we don't have one currently in Chelmsford, but there have been several inquiries of outside individuals or companies that would like to put one in Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And so that would impact the school system
Yes.
in a variety of ways, because we would then be mandated, if our students go there, to pay for transportation costs. So they're trying to do charter school reform at the state level, and there's a whole new thing that they've done with regard to a statute, and that's virtual schools. So that is online learning, and there are other implications, financial implications, to that particular whole process. I'm on that committee at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and trying to make sure they understand the school committee perspective and the impact to our budget and all of the other pieces to that. So
Nice.
those
Thanks.
are the couple of
Thank
big
you,
ones of
Evelyn.
those, and there's a whole lot of
Thanks.
other things that's
Oh, I
out
can
there.
imagine,
And I
yes,
only
but-
can talk so fast with the time that you've been given.
No,
me.
yeah.
Well,
No,
thank you,
yeah,
Evelyn, for
Well, thanks, yeah.
Her
we-
experience
Our
and,
time is, zipping by. Thanks, Evelyn. So I know Bob is on the show tonight. He's one of the candidates, but I wondered if anybody, including Bob, have comments about the upcoming Board of Selectmen race. There's Bob Joyce running and Joe Reddy running for the seat that will be vacated by Jim Lane coming up as of 1 week from tonight, April 1st. So anybody, I'll just leave it open to anybody who wants to talk about if you do want to talk about the Selectmen race, anyone?
I just think it's great that we have a choice out there, and you read a lot of things going on and things being said, and this. I would just ask people to, you know, take a look at the candidates, and there's a debate this
Thursday.
the Democrat
police station.
at the police station. Attend, and if you can't attend, watch it on television. Get to know the candidates and everything, and you know, different people may have differing opinions, but you know, you've got to respect all four of these candidates for, you know, putting their neck out there and be subject to ridicule.
Yeah.
And you know, you
It's
have to
tough.
respect them.
It's very
So
tough.
yeah, absolutely. So
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
usually what happens is that Chelmsford Telemedia will take all of those debates and run them
yes,
the
Oh,
weekend
that's
before
right,
the
yeah.
election.
yes,
Also, that's the City Life in Lowell. I have candidates on that program, and that will run, the next one will run Sunday afternoon, because Bob's on that one, and Dick DeFreitas is on that one. Joe Reddy was on a couple of weeks ago, and John Curlin was on last week.
Okay.
So those were running this week. Some people will see John on tonight, because it's on tonight,
Okay.
after the school committee meeting. So people wonder how he can be in so many places at the same time. It's tape. And because yours will be on tonight, is that correct, or is it tomorrow night? This one?
The show tonight.
Yeah.
And tomorrow
And
night.
tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's, so
Right,
I'm on
thank
like
you.
3
Any
places at the
comments
same time.
about the
Well,
selectman race?
Well, I'm happy
quickly?
to see that there's some competition. I know that having been a candidate and had competition, not competition, it's nice not to.
Yeah.
Because then you can focus on, you know, learning more stuff and getting in there. But one of the things about a competitive race, at least at that level, is that then you have more issues that come out. You know, there's more conversation about what's going on in the town. And so people pay a lot more attention to things like that.
exactly.
Tom, any comments about that?
Well, I just, you know, when we talk about you having competitive races, and actually one of the things that drove me into, when I ran for selectman, was I was very frustrated of the lack of competitive races, and I would go around and trying to recruit people to run, and they'd say, well, why don't you run? And so I'm very pleased to see competitive races, and I think that we do have good candidates. I, you know, personally support Bob, you know, based upon his experience, but I think that's good that we've got,
Yeah,
you know,
great.
competition.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Bob, do you have
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that one of the things that, because I can reflect back 21 years,
Yeah.
what it was like then, what it's like now.
Yeah.
The internet has provided a whole new dimension to an election. And,
Yes.
and I just want to tell folks, you know, Facebook, I'm not crazy about Facebook, okay? But people need to be kinder. And not necessarily towards me, but towards everybody. There were comments
Well,
made on
Not
Facebook.
on reps and residents.
No,
because I
no,
don't
I know,
allow them.
you
'Cause I delete
you
them. If
moderate
somebody
it.
makes a personal
Yeah,
comment,
yeah.
yes.
And I think that's very important, and I think, you know, when people look at my background versus my competitor's background, they'll see I have all the experience. I've been there, I've done that. And, you know, I'm not probably, but I am the best candidate for that seat.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Bob. And you're welcome to ask quickly for the vote before, rather than the
are we
other
ready?
vote. No, just, I mean, that was like the perfect opportunity.
Well,
I mean, if you want to,
I'd like to ask everybody
You
out
could look at
there,
that camera there.
voters, for your vote on April 1st. I'd like your consideration, and I'd like your vote. And certainly reach out to me before and hopefully after, when I become a selectman. I will respond to you. But yeah, that's about it.
thank you,
Yeah.
Bob. Well, we have another town-wide race, which is turned out to be a very interesting race this year for town moderator.
Mm-hmm.
We have the existing town moderator who is completing the 3rd year of his first term, Dick DeFreitas, and we have John Curlin running this year for that town moderator position. Any thoughts from anybody on the town moderator race?
I think it's interesting in terms of how town meeting changed. You know, some of us have been on town meetings since 1989, or long enough to have known what the culture was, or the environment, whatever you want to call it, when we had Dennis McHugh. And basically, you know, he was up there just to kind of stop things if they were getting out of hand, or to make sure people were asking questions instead of debating during questions. And it pretty much, town meeting ran itself, and people seemed to be fine, and you had lots of competition on the precincts. And Dennis decided he wouldn't do it. I don't know if he decided he wouldn't do it because he'd been doing it so long, or because we no longer would pay him, now you get no benefits. But, you know, you never
Exactly,
know. Because
exactly.
that was one of the things, okay, you're not running because now you're not getting any benefits from the town. But, you know, Dick stepped up to the plate. There was no competition. at that time, and everybody thought, okay, he was on the Board of Selectmen, he's been around, and he was a town meeting rep and did different things, but he wanted to change it up. He went to other communities, he took classes, he did all kinds of stuff. But if something wasn't broken, why try to fix it? I mean, it did work well, and no matter how many times you try to make it efficient, you're still not going shorter than 2 nights in the spring and 2 nights in the fall. You're getting elected to do the town's business. It shouldn't matter how much time it takes, considering what I do. And if you get elected, how much time you would put in, what you might have put in, what you put in terms of what town meeting does. So in that, and then sometimes people, he'd get up there and lecture people, and so people didn't like it. So I know that they were looking for someone else to replace Dick, and they did approach John to do that, and that was one of the reasons that he ran, to try to get a little bit more respect back into how town meeting was run.
Thank you. Thanks, Evelyn.
But I think Dick had good intentions, it's just that it didn't work.
He's trying very hard, let's face it, with all those other meetings he's attending and reading all these books. I mean, he's trying. And
Well, he's very serious about it.
Yeah, very serious about it. Any other comments about that race?
Yeah, I really take exception to the fact that Dick's opponent is spinning the campaign to a certain degree, that people aren't going for town meeting because they don't like Dick. I don't think that's the reason. I mean, last year they blamed, or the year before they blamed Van Loo. Oh, nobody wants to serve because of Van Loo. Now this year it's nobody wants to serve because Dick, because he's supposedly disrespectful. But I don't think anybody's been treated more harshly than me at town meeting by Dick. And
That's right.
And I support him.
You remind me.
And I support him. And he's made some changes. They weren't popular changes, but I think he's really redeemed himself by getting that Marcom committee going.
Yeah.
And they're talking about doing things that he's not crazy about, but he's going to go with them.
Yeah, and I have the recommendations right here. There's a whole slew of them that the Marcom committee came up with. The chairman of that committee will be on this show next month.
Oh, okay.
Mike McCall.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, and Mike is, he's a straight shooter, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
everybody. Just about it. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Tom,
I think that Dennis has been moderator for so long that any change was going to be a big change for people. And I think that and I had my reservations about Dick at first, but I think Dick has done a really good job just stepping in. Yeah. Because there's been other changes. There's the vote counting. That's holding people accountable, and
that's right. Some people don't want to run because of that. I've heard that
Right.
from a
Yeah,
firefighter
exactly.
I know. He says, "I don't want my name up there. How I vote."
I don't really care, because when you're an elected official in a different capacity,
Right.
everything is public, it's televised, and
Yeah.
you got minutes that's
Recorded.
up there. Everybody knows how
Well,
you're
you
voting
know,
all the
yeah.
time, so what
But
difference does it make?
I agree. I love electronic voting. Some people though didn't, Evelyn. They told me. I don't
So I
like.
think
I don't like a
that's-
record of how I vote.
I think that
Right,
that's
Bob?
Yeah.
Don't they?
that's caused an issue. But I think that also what a lot of people don't appreciate is the fact that a big role of the town moderator is appointing the finance committee. And I know Dick has taken some heat from that, and I know that John's been very outspoken on that, and stating that there needs to be at least one attorney on the finance committee, and I don't agree with that. I think that I've always felt that Dennis for years did a great job of, I think, keeping the finance committee non-political. And I think that I see the finance committee's role as being a watchdog and asking questions, and asking tough questions of the Board of Selectmen and of the town manager and the school committee in reviewing the budget. That's what the finance committee should be doing. And I don't think that we want to have a political person, and no disrespect to John. John has been involved in a lot of things. He's been involved in the he's been on the FinCom. He's been on the Board of Selectmen very recently. But and Dick has been involved in a lot of things. But Dick is a little bit more separated from it because of time. And I think that he's less political, and I think his appointments have been less political. And I think that I don't want to see the finance committee politicized.
Yes.
But I don't agree with you. I don't think that it's going to be politicized, but I've seen a tremendous turnover of number of people on there than when we were first on there. Some people would stay like forever, like Dwight. Haywood
Yeah,
would
they
stay
just
there a long
aged
time.
out. They
But you-
aged
but
Well,
you've
I
out.
also
understand that,
seen
but
it-
people would stay a long time. And
But
some
they're
people,
old.
But some of them, when you talk to them, when they get on there, it's not what they expected. They weren't told what was expected of them. And some of that stuff needs to happen from the side of the moderator by basically, when an interview process, do you know what you're getting yourself into and how many nights it's going to take
Yeah.
and what is expected of you? I do agree that it's an oversight committee, and I don't have any trouble answering any of their questions about the school budget or any other kinds of monies. And I think that, some of the appointments in terms of what their financial background is, I think that's very good that you want to have people that understand what the finances are, but you want to have them understand what the municipal part is. If you have a lawyer on there, whether or not I want one or I don't, it's irrelevant. But if you have a lawyer on there, I could see a value in that, like if you had somebody like Mary Franz that was involved in the schools that understood all about Chapter 70. So you put somebody on there that maybe is coming off the school committee. I'm not coming off the school committee, so I'm not looking to go on FinCom. But I mean, I'm just saying that they would understand that whole budget aspect of things. They bring value with that experience.
And we've got that.
But when you talk about the turnover, I think a lot of the you mentioned Dwight and Mary Franz, which both have been some high profile, very long-standing people that that left recently. And partly, what happens is if you have people that stay on a long time, and then you don't get the turnover. So we're having a kind of a rush of turnover. But yes, there also have been some recent appointments that haven't stayed on. But I think that you're going to get that, in a lot of
on
committees.
elected committees,
Yeah.
too.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we finish up the show, we only have a couple of minutes left. Some of you may notice on the screen it says the Tom Christiano show, or did a minute ago. Some of you may have seen my show in December where I had an animal companion show with, it's wonderful with these dogs from Lowell Humane Society and adoptable cats and a little guinea pig and everything. And that was a really popular show, right? It was a special. Then I did a small business special with Phil Jones and 3 or 4 other small business people, and that was really popular. Then I did an artist special with 6 artists on the show, contemporary artist special, and that was like the most popular show ever. And I have another artist show scheduled for May, another small business show scheduled for next month. So the title that I had, the full title, didn't really fit anymore, politically incorrect with Tom Christiano, so we just are shortening it a little bit. It's still the same show, but it's just called the Tom Christiano Show now. So if you're wondering about that, okay, just to quickly clarify
Yeah, it's because
that.
you broaden your topics.
Behind
broaden the topic,
behind
yeah.
you, it just says with Tom Christiano.
Yeah, that's because we got the new cookie being made. But anyway, yeah, so that's the explanation. No big deal. It's the same show. It's just that we're covering much more than politics now. And those shows are really popular. I could tell on YouTube and everything, all the hits we're getting. But Bob, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to add to the moderator discussion, and that's that on the Finance Committee, in the past, Dennis McHugh would appoint maybe lawyers or other people, but it always seems like certain people would get appointed that were perching for the Board of Selectmen or some other seat. And if you go back in history, you'll see it, including John. But there were Peter Lawler, there was a whole bunch of
Mike
people.
McCall.
And so
yes.
I don't want people on the
Even
Finance
Kevin
Committee
Porter.
who are just perching
Was on
to
the
get
elected
ahead.
school committee.
Yeah.
I want them to
Right.
really want to do their job. So
yeah.
that's even more why they shouldn't be political.
Glad you're John's back on
Yes,
it.
yeah. Well, it's been a wonderful political discussion on tonight's show, right? We have the election coming up 1 week from today. Hopefully, everybody who has followed the issues will get out and vote, because I don't think it's right to go out and vote if you're just guessing. I think you should be watching the debates, watching
who they're
shows
voting
like
for.
this. Yeah, watching, reading everything you can on the Reps and Residents group and every place else. The Lowell Sun, just read what you can about the candidates and then vote once you know what's going on. Thank you, Tom Newcomb, for being here.
Thank
I
you
really
for inviting me,
appreciate
Tom. It's
coming
always a
back.
pleasure.
Now that you're going to be a town meeting rep, you'll be at least once
And
a
I
year,
can build
hopefully.
my number up.
Yeah, right, you're going to build it up. You're up to 12 as of today, right? So that's good. Thank you, Evelyn, the 23rd
nice-
time
nice
today.
to be on.
It's good to have you back on the show. Thank you, Bob. It's great to have you back on the show, and good luck next week in
Thank
the
you.
election.
April 1st, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yep, the town election. Thank you, Bob. Bob's one of the selectmen
If we
candidates.
don't get snow.
As you know. If we don't get snow.
Yeah,
And
another
thank you,
April
Jeff
Fool.
Apostolakes, for being on the show again. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And
Absolutely.
maybe someday you talk about, you might run for selectman yourself someday,
Yeah, at some
right?
point. Let the kids get a
So-
little older, we have a little more time, and
Yeah, right, that's a
Yeah.
good idea, because when they're young, it's very, very
Yeah,
difficult,
I think they
as
might
Bob
run
said
around.
before, but if they get older, and you have such a beautiful family.